Can DeSantis kill more people than Trump? Looks like he's trying. Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. So, as I was saying, Ron DeSantis is now, he's getting in on this act, right? Because no one was held accountable for 500,000 deaths. There's literally no consensus in America about who's responsible for the fact that Taiwan, that got its first case of COVID the same day we did back and the first death from COVID as well, back in March of last year. The Taiwan has had 12 people die now. South Korea, it's been a couple hundred. We had 500,000. Nobody has been held responsible for this, which blows my mind. I mean, we really need to be talking about this. Who do we hold responsible for this? Well, Ron DeSantis, Mark Sumner over at Daily Kos writes the headline, Ron DeSantis wants an award, and he deserves one, for conducting the biggest cover-up of COVID-19 data. And that's what's going on. On Thursday of last week, Ron DeSantis published an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal basically saying, I ignored the science, I told people they didn't need masks, I kept the state open, and now our economic activity is doing better than a lot of other states. Nya, nya, nya. And what he neglected to say, and by the way, his policies are creating an absolute screaming crisis. You saw, Miami Beach is under a 2-week state of emergency right now with lockdowns and not lockdown, what do you call it? A curfew, an overnight curfew. So, here's DeSantis taking a victory lap after he killed 32,000 Floridians that we know of. And this is where, the truth is we may have no friggin' clue how many people actually died in Florida of COVID. First of all, when the epidemic started, the pandemic started in February and March, medical examiners in the state of Florida would record the cause of death and report it to the county. And then the county would post that on their website and send the information to the state. But it was all public, right? They didn't name the people and the medical examiners, but they listed the cause of death and the numbers. Well, that was starting to look bad for DeSantis because there were starting to be a lot of COVID deaths in Florida, so he changed it. He said, medical examiners, you may no longer tell the counties, you have to tell me, you have to tell the state. And don't worry, we'll publicize that information. But they didn't. They hid it. In fact, as of March 2020, March a year ago, 1 year ago this month, county medical examiners were forbidden from revealing the numbers of deaths or even the cause of death, which led to, in April, now keep in mind, there was no flu last year. Typically in America, there's like 30,000 flu deaths and a couple 100,000 flu cases. There was like a few hundred or maybe a few thousand flu cases, no flu deaths. We basically had no flu in the United States last year. And the reason why, of course, is because everybody was wearing a mask. Not everybody, but enough. But suddenly in Florida, they had this, in April of last year, they had this huge spike in pneumonia deaths. This is what Ron DeSantis and the state were calling them. These were obviously COVID deaths, but they didn't want to flag them as COVID deaths. And so they said, well, it's pneumonia caused by the flu. But there was no flu. And then you had this data scientist, Dr. Rebecca Jones, who had been working for the state compiling this information. And when Ron DeSantis hid all this information, she put up her own website to show the information. She not only got fired, but the state police raided her home and took her computers, which, as far as I can tell, are still gone. The state medical examiners were up in arms. They called DeSantis' numbers a sham. The Miami Herald said that the data is riddled with holes now. If you were a snowbird, if you live, if you own a condo or a house or an apartment in Florida and you spend the winter months there and the summer months in Michigan or Pennsylvania or wherever, and you get and die of COVID in Florida, they don't even list you as a death in the state because you're not, your driver's license isn't a Florida driver's license because you live, 6 months, 7 months out of the year in Michigan and 5 months out of the year in Florida. I mean, this is how bad it is. The rate, and what we do know, which is very little, but what we do know is that the rate of deaths in Florida is 27% higher than Virginia, 36% higher than North Carolina, and 180% higher than Maine, the per capita rate of deaths. Ron DeSantis wants to run for president. Of course, Rick Scott's going to beat him to that. But, he's trying to be the new national hero. He's the guy. I conquered COVID, right?